Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Gharavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Chaiva Tato Jayamudirayet. Good. Welcome back. We continue with the dialogue between the Vyadha, the butcher, and the Brahmana. The Vyadha is continuing his lecture in today's class. The last time we saw, the current topic is how does one extricate oneself from constant rebirth. And just to recall the topic from our last class, you are reborn because of your past karma. How much past karma do you have? Well, our analysis showed that in an infinite number of prior universes, you have had an infinite number of prior lives. Therefore, you have an infinite amount of Sanchita karma. An infinite amount of Sanchita karma is enough to support how many future lives? Okay, the math is very simple. And if we recognize that even the best life, well, actually, let's not say best life in some loka, some heavenly domain, even to be born in some heavenly domain is not the ultimate goal of life. We had a long discussion about this. I just captured very briefly. We said, in the Hindu tradition, unlike the biblical traditions, in the Hindu tradition, going to heaven cannot possibly be the goal. Why? Because you go to heaven based on your good karmas, but you go to heaven based on finite good karmas. Remember the distinction between the infinite Sanchita karmas and the finite prarabdha karmas? Remember that distinction? So you go to heaven based on your finite good prarabdha karmas. And when those prarabdha karmas are exhausted, your time in heaven comes to an end. So, unlike Christian theology, Hindu theology has no room for infinite heaven. That which has a beginning has an end. Logic is very clear. So therefore, heaven cannot be the goal. Then what is the goal? We said the goal is to remain. Actually, I'm going to use a little different language today. The goal is to remain non-separate from Ishvara. How's that? That's a very nice way of expressing the goal. The ultimate goal is not merely to merge into Ishvara. In fact, you can do that in meditation. You don't have to get enlightened or die to merge into Ishvara. If you learn how to meditate properly, you can do so in meditation. Then what is the goal? The goal is not merely to merge into Ishvara, God of the cosmos, but to remain non-separate. Because if there's any separation, there's some loss. So how to remain non-separate from Ishvara? Only if you're not reborn. How not to be reborn if you have an infinite amount of Sanchita karma. And we'll conclude this introduction by reminding you of the wonderful metaphor we used at the end of the last class. I'll retell it briefly, a little modified. Suppose in a dream, you get really angry and you commit murder in a dream. You murder someone in cold blood and you are sentenced to life in prison. Life in prison means no parole. Means you never get out of prison. Means you're in prison every day, day after day after day after day after day. You're in prison for committing murder, and then you wake up. That's a short version of last week's more elaborate retelling of the story. But it's really perfect, because even though you have a life sentence in the dream, it's dream. It's not absolutely real. Because of its lack of reality, it goes away. If Sanchita karma were absolutely real, there's no solution. But suppose Sanchita karma, like everything else in the world, is not absolutely real. It's real enough, but not absolutely real. In the dream, what you experience is real enough. But then you wake up. Similarly, suppose what you experience here in this life, in this world, it's real enough. But then we can wake up out of this ignorance that makes us see this world as being absolutely real. And just to wrap up our introduction, when you wake up out of that dream, what is a dream? Taking this world as being absolutely real. When you wake out of that dream, when you realize the underlying reality, Brahman, with that recognition, you demote the reality of the world, and part of that world is your Sanchita karma. You destroy the reality of the world, you destroy the reality of your Sanchita karma, and to go back to our last topic, you destroy the reality of the individual person who committed the karmas. The dreamer committed the murder. When the dreamer ceases to exist, the life sentence goes away. An individual person in past lives accumulated this individual Sanchita karma. Listen very carefully. This is the end of the introduction, then we'll go back. An individual person committed all those karmas which accumulated into your infinite Sanchita karma. Suppose that individual person ceases to exist. Suppose the person who continues to exist is pure consciousness, the inner divinity, Satchidananda Atma. That's the key. If that individual person, we use the terms ego and ahankara, if that one ceases to exist, the ownership of that Sanchita karma goes away, just as a dreamer becomes free of the lifelong jail sentence. In the same way, the individual person, losing their sense of individuality by gaining knowledge of the reality of who they are, they therefore become free of that infinite amount of Sanchita karma. That's what we saw in the prior verse, and that'll introduce our discussion today. So, the butcher, isn't it interesting that who's teaching the Brahmana right now? And where is this discussion taking place? Let us not forget, it's being taught by a butcher who happens to be wise. And where is this dialogue taking place? In the butcher's shop. Presumably surrounded by the corpses of dead animals. This is where this dialogue is taking place. So, the Vyadha, the butcher continues. Sachain nivritta bandhastu, sachain nivritta bandhastu, vishuddhaschapi karma bihi, vishuddhaschapi karma, prapnoti sukratan lokan, prapnoti sukratan, yatra gatva na shochati, yatra gatva Sahachet nivritta bandhaha tu, but saha, he, chet, if he can become nivritta bandhaha, if he can become free from bondage. Now, just to make sure that you understand our prior discussion, how does one become free from bondage? How do you become free from an infinite amount of Sanchita karma? Not by exhausting that infinite amount of Sanchita karma. You become free by losing ownership of it. Remember the metaphor? When Mr. Gates passes away, his fortune will go to charity. He will cease to possess it. In the same way, when the individual person, jiva, ceases to exist separate from Ishvara, when a jiva becomes enlightened and a jiva knows, I am non-separate from Brahman, when that individuality is destroyed, then the jiva loses possession of that infinite amount of sanchita karma. That's what it means to be nivritta bandha, to be freed from bondage. So that person who becomes freed from bondage, that person vishuddha cha api karma bihi. Vishuddha is purified. Purified from what? Karma bihi. Is purified from all the karmas, freed from all the karmas, unaffected by all those karmas. Just summarizes what we've been discussing. Then, what happens next? What happens to Mr. Gates after he passes away? We don't know. But what happens to an enlightened person after they pass away? This is a very significant discussion, but based on what we've discussed, you can get it. Ordinarily, if you're not enlightened, you still own that sanchita karma. That sanchita karma is definitely going to drive another birth. But suppose if you're enlightened and have relinquished ownership of that infinite sanchita karma, then what happens at death? For an enlightened person, what happens at death is this. The physical body, like any other physical body, at death returns to physical elements. The subtle body, the sukshma sharira, that usually travels to the next physical body, driven by karma, to be reborn, that sukshma sharira is no longer affected by karma for all the reasons we've just discussed. For all the reasons we've discussed, that sukshma, there's no more connection to the karma, there's no more effect of that karma, ownership of karma being given up. Therefore, there's nothing to drive that sukshma sharira onwards to get reborn. Let me amplify that point a little bit. At death, the physical body decomposes, which leads us to raise a question. At death, just as the physical body decomposes into physical elements, why does the subtle body not decompose into subtle elements? You get it? At death, physical body definitely decomposes into physical elements. Then why does the subtle body, the sukshma sharira, what prevents it from decomposing into subtle elements? It should. What prevents it is karma. The laws of karma determine that those sanchita karmas have to be exhausted, and in order to exhaust those sanchita karmas, somebody has to exist to experience those sanchita karmas. Therefore, we can say that karma is like a kind of glue, a karmic glue that maintains the integrity of the subtle body at the time of death. Make sense? Nothing holds the physical body together. Something holds the subtle body, sukshma sharira, together. Something makes it maintain its integrity. What makes it maintain it, what maintains the integrity of the subtle body is the force of karma. For the unenlightened person, that karma has an effect and ensures the integrity of the subtle body. It travels, it takes another physical body for the sake of exhausting karma. For the enlightened person, the effects of karma have been severed. There's no effect of karma, meaning there's no karmic glue available to maintain the integrity of the subtle body. So at death, for an enlightened person, just as the physical body goes back to physical elements, in the same way the subtle body goes back to subtle elements. It dissolves. And you might think, wait a minute, is that such a good thing? It's absolutely a good thing. Why? The existence of your subtle body gives you the experience of being non-separate from Ishvara. The existence of your subtle body makes you feel like a finite, limited, individual being that has to struggle for happiness and that is subject to suffering. Suppose you're freed from that subtle body. You no longer experience a sense of isolation and being limited. You experience fullness, completeness, being utterly non-separate from Ishvara. The continued existence of the subtle body ensures that you will experience being separate from Ishvara. The absence of the subtle body means utter non-separation from Ishvara, a condition of perfect peace and contentment which doesn't have an end. Leading us to the last part of the verse, which says that this person, the enlightened person, dying, becoming freed of the physical body and the subtle body, what happens to that enlightened person? In the third line, prapnoti, that person gains. Gains what? Sukritan lokan. This is an expression borrowed from the Vedas. And it's a common expression in the Vedas. It means the worlds gained through good karmas. It's a Vedic expression. The literal meaning, lokan, worlds, sukritan, gained through good karmas. Wait a minute. Isn't that kind of like the opposite of what we're talking about here? Absolutely. It's a very common expression. Do you know, when we speak in English or when you speak in Hindi or whatever, you use a lot of casual common expressions. And you have to really, if the other person doesn't know the language, they won't understand that expression. This is an idiom. Look at the whole thing. You get the point. So this enlightened person, prapnoti, gains, sukritan lokan, gains the worlds like heaven, heavenly worlds. But notice the last line, heavenly worlds, yatra gatva, having gone there, nashochati, one doesn't suffer, and we have to add one more word, one never suffers again. Going to these worlds, one never suffers again. If you go to heaven based on your good deeds, will you never suffer again? We just said, if you go to heaven based on your finite good karmas, when those finite good karmas are exhausted, pardon the expression, you get kicked out of heaven. How's that? You get kicked out of heaven. Your time in heaven comes to an end. Your life in heaven comes to an end. You get reborn into another situation. But here, the last line, yatra gatva, having gone there, nashochati, one doesn't suffer, and we have to add one word again. One never suffers further, meaning it can't be heaven if it has no end. Therefore, this is an idiomatic expression. If you take it very literally, it's confusing. It sounds like the enlightened person goes to heaven. But if an enlightened person goes to heaven, when your time in heaven is over, you get reborn. So it doesn't mean going to heaven. It uses some typical Vedic language, which we have to interpret properly. The enlightened person gains what? A condition of being utterly non-separate from Ishvara, and a condition which has no end. It continues. So this is how we envision the goal of life. And please notice, and just one technical point, just to appreciate this, if enlightenment is a result of karma, action, I mean, put enlightenment aside. Anything that is the result of action is going to be permanent or temporary. Just by definition. If it's the result of some action, actions are finite. Finite actions can only yield finite results. So the result of any finite action can only be finite, not limitless, not endless. On the other hand, we say that enlightenment is not the result of action. We say enlightenment is the result of jnanam, knowledge. Not the result of karma, action. Enlightenment is not the result of karma, action, which is finite and limited. Enlightenment is the result of jnanam, knowledge. And look at this. When knowledge takes place, it destroys ignorance. When ignorance is destroyed, does it pop up again? When ignorance is destroyed, can it arise again? Let me just demonstrate. You see my glasses? They're hidden. But you already have knowledge of the glasses. Even though you don't see them, your ignorance of the glasses hidden behind this paper, you have that ignorance has been destroyed. Now tell me, in 10 seconds, will that ignorance come back? About the glasses here? Suppose we sit here for a week. We're not going to. That would be, talk about hell. That would be hellish, just to sit here for a week, an unending class. But if we did sit here for a week, and I continued to hold this paper here for a week, after 1 week, would your ignorance of the glasses return? After a week's time. When ignorance is destroyed, it's gone. So, karma yields finite results. Enlightenment cannot be the result of karma. Enlightenment is a result not of karma, but of jnana, in particular, Brahma Jnana, Atma Jnana, self-knowledge, knowledge of reality. It destroys ignorance of your true nature, ignorance of the reality of Ishvara, of the world. When that ignorance is destroyed, it's over, it doesn't come back. All right. Then he explores this a little further. Anasuya kritagnyascha Anasuyash kritagnya kalyananyeva sevate kalyananyeva sukhani dharmam hartam cha sukhani dharmam hart swargam chalabate naraha swargam chalabate. Just to make really sure, what any good teacher does, I won't say I'm a good teacher, but I'll say I do something that good teachers do. What is that? Repetition. Repetition is absolutely essential for us to understand anything. And so here, Vyadha, the butcher, is repeating what he just taught. So what does he say? First of all, he wants to establish, in this verse, he's going to establish that karma won't make you enlightened. In the next verse, he's going to say knowledge will make you enlightened. So let's see how that works. So here he says, Anasuyaha, a pure-hearted person, Kritagnaha cha, a person who is grateful, a person who sevate, engages in kalyanani, engages in good deeds, good actions. A pure-hearted, good person who engages in good actions. Through their good deeds, will they get enlightened? No. But what will they gain? They will certainly gain sukhani, happiness. Why will they gain happiness? If you're doing good deeds in this life, won't some of the results of those good deeds take place during this life? Absolutely. So from their good deeds, kalyanani means good deeds. So by the performance of those good deeds, they're going to, at the last line, naraha labate, a person gains. What does a person gain? Sukhani, happiness. Not only happiness, Dharmam, artham cha. You also gain dharma and artha. Look at those three words. Sukha, dharma, and artha. Do you make a connection? Four purusharthas are what? Dharma, artha, kama. Instead of sukha, the word we use is kama. These are the goals of life. Dharma, collecting good karmas for the sake of better rebirth. Artha, collecting wealth for your security and happiness in this life. And kama, fulfilling your desires for the sake of happiness in this life. I don't want to, we can spend hours talking about these purusharthas, but you understand. These are the four goals of life. Dharma, meaning dharma, artha, kama, and just to see them in reverse order. Kama, being happy now. Artha, wealth, so that you can be happy tomorrow. And dharma, collecting good karma, so you can be happy in the next life. You see how those three work? Kama, be happy now. Artha, wealth, so you can be happy tomorrow and the rest of your life. And dharma, so that your rebirth will be desirable. These are three of the four goals of life. And dharma leads to what? He actually says here, svarga, heaven. So, through the performance of good deeds, naraha labate, a person gains. Gains what? Sukhani, be happy now. Artha, be happy tomorrow. Dharma leads to svarga, means be happy in heaven. All of which are temporary conditions, correct? So he is restating what he's already taught. Then what is the solution? Excuse me. If the performance of good deeds leads to... By the way, did he say you shouldn't do good deeds? No. In fact, do you want to be happy? Yes. Then what should you do? Do good deeds. By doing good deeds, you gain happiness today, you'll gain happiness for the rest of your life, and you can gain happiness after you're reborn, recognizing, however, that whatever happiness you obtain is finite, it's limited. Therefore, dharmasya cha palam labdhva, dharmasya cha palam na tripyati mahadvaja, na tripyati maha, atripyamano nirvedam, atripyamano adatte jnana chakshusha, adatte jnana dharmasya cha palam labdhva. Labdhva, having gained, palam, the fruits, dharmasya, of your good deeds. Having gained the fruits of your good deeds, what are the fruits of your good deeds? You're happy now, you're happy for the rest of this life, and you're reborn into a good life. So labdhva, having gained those results, is that enough? If we recognize the limitations of what can be accomplished through good deeds, it's not enough. And that's what the Vyadha says, na tripyati. One is not satisfied. If you understand the limitations, one is not satisfied. Na tripyati. Mahadvaja, oh great Brahmana. The Vyadha addresses the Brahmana. You know, to understand this idea of not being fulfilled, if you win a lottery, that sounds really cool, right? You win a lottery. Suppose the lottery is $200. You know, there are big winners of lotteries and there are small winners of lotteries. So suppose you win a lottery, and it's you know, winning a lottery is supposed to be a big deal. Suppose it's a lottery that has as its, what do they call it? Not pool. The what is the term they use? Pot. Jackpot. There we go. The jackpot of this lottery is, say, $200 million. Mind-boggling. They get up that big. So suppose the jackpot of this lottery is $200 million, and you discover you are a winner. You have a winning ticket, not the winning ticket, a winning ticket. You're so excited. You find out then that your winning ticket is worth how much? $200. Will you be satisfied? So that's it. It's $200. Well, that metaphorically represents what you can accomplish through a lifetime of good deeds. I mean, it's still good. By the way, $200 is not a bad thing. It's just not enough. So what you obtain through a lifetime of good deeds is like $200. It's something good, but it's not enough. Natripyati. A person is not satisfied. Then, atripyamanaha, and being dissatisfied with those worldly results, being dissatisfied with your $200 lottery. You know somebody got the jackpot and you only got $200, you're not going to be satisfied. Atripyamanaha, being dissatisfied. Adate nirvedam. Adate, one gains. One gains what? Nirvedam is a fancy word for dispassion. Words like vairagya are much more common. Here the word comes, nirvedam. It means dispassion. So if you get that 200, if you thought your lottery ticket was worth 200 million, and then you discover it's only worth $200, how will you feel about that lottery ticket? You might even throw it away. Even though it's worth $200, you'll be so frustrated. You just throw that, you'll tear it up, throw it away, whatever. Nirvedam adate. You will gain dispassion. Here we're not talking about lottery tickets, we're talking about life. We're talking about a life of good deeds. If your goal in life is merely to go on collecting good deeds for the sake of happiness now, for the sake of happiness tomorrow, for the sake of happiness in heaven, when you realize it's like that $200 lottery ticket, you won't be satisfied, you want something more, and therefore, nirvedam adate, you become dispassionate. Why? Jnana chakshusha. This term comes in Bhagavad Gita and elsewhere. Jnana chakshus. Chakshus is eye. Jnana chakshus, eye of wisdom. It's like a metaphor, a little poetic. Jnana chakshusha, with eyes of wisdom. Eyes of wisdom means what? With the ability to discern. Discern what? Discern the value. When you discern the value of that $200 lottery ticket, it's nothing. When you discern the value of just being happy, is that really the goal of life? Just to be? Does that sound right? What is your goal of life? My goal of life is to be happy. Happy, 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 happy. That sounds like a child. There must be something more. A discerning person is one who recognizes the limitations of worldly happiness and wants something more. This word nirvedam is an unusual word. It's not used frequently, but it's used in one really famous verse of the Mundaka Upanishad. It's such an important and famous verse. I want to share it with you right now. We'll see the first half right now, and then in a moment we'll see the second half. The first half, Parik, by the way, there are very few verses that I would say you should memorize or learn. This is worth remembering. This one, even if you don't memorize it, but understand it. This one is absolutely worth remembering. This verse is connected to our text, our Mahabharata text, uses that word nirvedam, which is an unusual word for dispassion, vairagya, dispassion. So where does that word come from? Look at the second line. Nirvedam ayat. So the fact that the butcher is using that word means the butcher is thinking about this verse. What is this verse? Comes from the Mundaka Upanishad. You can look it up at home. It is first book, second chapter, 12th verse of the famous Mundaka Upanishad. It says, Parikshya, examining lokan, examining the worlds, this world and heavenly worlds, karma chitan, which are gained through karma. Examining what you can achieve through your hard work. That's a nice way of putting it. Examining what you can achieve through your hard work. For most people, the recognition eventually seeps in. Let me tell what that recognition is. When we were young, and I won't speak for you, when I was young, I thought I could do anything. I thought all I had to do was work hard enough and smart enough, and I could absolutely guarantee a happy life for myself. That's how I thought in my mid-20s. Not unusual. In my mid-20s, I thought, if I work hard enough and smart enough, I can guarantee a happy life for myself. 10 years later, did I feel the same way? Absolutely not. In those 10 years, I learned that no matter how hard I work and no matter how smart I am, there's absolutely no guarantee to happiness in life. There are so many factors that aren't in our control. This is the wisdom we gain through worldly experiences. This is not even a spiritual teaching. This is a worldly teaching. We just learn that we can... Oh my gosh. What just came up in my mind is a rock and roll song from the 1960s of the famous Rolling Stones. A few of you know this song, where Mick Jagger says, "You can't always get what you want." And that's the refrain. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. You can't... This is a song. Mick Jagger is probably not enlightened. We don't know, but I think reasonable to assume that he's not enlightened, but he understood you can't always get what you want. How did he learn that? He learned it the same way we all learn. By going through life. By going through life, we learn this lesson. Pariksha lokan. By examining our lives. Karma chitan. By examining what we can accomplish with our hard work. What happens? We become intelligent. The word brahmanaha here means an intelligent person. Doesn't mean one of that caste. It means an intelligent person. So by examining what we can accomplish through our worldly efforts, we all become brahmanas in the sense that we become intelligent. And then what? Nirvedam, that's our word, dispassion, vairagya. Nirvedam ayat. That intelligent person gains dispassion towards these worldly pursuits, and knowing what? Nasti akritaha kritena. This is a little shorthand. It has to be understood. Kritena. Now, let me start with the first word. Akritaha. Akritaha literally means that which is not done, that which is not created. And it's kind of a subtle word that refers to that which is timeless. That which is not created is timeless. Anything created, anything that starts, stops, as we said before. That which doesn't start, that which is timelessly existent, is a way of describing moksha. Akritaha, that which is uncreated, it's like a code word for moksha. Take my word for it, or read the commentary on this verse. The commentaries will make it very clear. Akritaha literally means uncreated. It's a code word to the eternal freedom that we call moksha. So that which is eternal is nasti kritena, cannot be achieved through action. Kritena, through your finite efforts, nasti akritaha, that eternal condition of moksha can never be achieved through your finite actions. Just, this is a little abstract, so give me just a moment to make it more relevant to your experience. Everyone wants contentment. How much contentment do you want? And I made up this story long ago. If you've heard it before, I apologize, but it's helpful. Suppose I could give you a pill. Taking this pill, you would be content 99% of the time. Would you take that pill? 99% sounds a lot better than any other kind of life you could think. Give me that pill. So you take that pill, and now you are content 99% of the time. And then today you come to class, but today happens to be that 1%. And I ask you, are you okay today, knowing that you are content 99% of the time, and being absolutely miserable today? Are you okay with being absolutely miserable today? What would you tell me? You'd tell me, no. I want to be content 100% of the time. Being content 100% of the time is a condition of perfection, right? Being content 100% of the time is a condition of perfection. Can you achieve a condition of perfection through effort? It's an interesting philosophical question. Can you achieve perfection through effort? You've heard me give this example before. Suppose you want a perfect body, so you go to the gym 4 hours a day. Will you get a perfect body? 6 hours a day in a gym. 8 hours a day in a gym. It's ridiculous, right? You're never, through your efforts, going to get a perfect body. Suppose you want a perfect mind. What do? You see a therapist. I'm not sure that's going to... Suppose there's a really, really good therapist. Okay. You have weekly appointments with that therapist. Will you get a perfect mind? Maybe you should have 2 appointments a week. 3 appointments a week. How ridiculous! Your body can never be perfected. Your mind can never be perfected. And look at the irony. What do we seek? Perfection. Recognize the irony. Our bodies will never be perfect. Our minds will never be perfect. Our families will never be perfect. Our houses will never, whatever it is, it'll never be perfect. And yet, we are all wired, so to speak, to seek a condition of perfect contentment. Bhagavan has a strange sense of humor. You get the point that we are, when I say we are wired, inside of us all is this longing for this condition of absolute contentment, in spite of the fact that that contentment can never be achieved by improving our bodies and mind, yet we want it. What is this? What is the solution? The first step, it's a two-step solution. First step is in the first half of this verse. First step is to recognize what doesn't work. And what doesn't work is our limited, finite efforts. And that was my recognition, and for many of you also, when we were young. We finally figured out that no matter how hard we try, no matter how smart we are, there is no way of guaranteeing perfect contentment in life. That's what this line says. Nasti akritaha kritena. That condition of perfection, akritaha, can never be achieved through your finite deeds. Nasti kritena. Therefore, nirvedam ayat. One becomes dispassionate. Okay, that's not the whole solution, but it's the first important step. In fact, this is, let's give this recognition the significance it deserves. This is a radical transformation in one's vision about life. When we're young, we all start out thinking that, what is the American expression? The world is a bowl of cherries? Is that the expression? So we start off with this incredible youthful optimism, which is a good thing. I'm not to be critical of it. It's a good thing. But the world is not a bowl of cherries. The world is another American expression, a mixed bag. It's a variety of things. There are many happy things in life. There are many miserable things in life. But one thing we learn. And if we haven't, by the way, if we haven't learned it yet, now's a good time. What is that? No matter how hard you try in life, no matter how smart you are, you will never create a life of perfect contentment. And you might be thinking, well, of course. But so many people harbor a naive notion. Let me describe that naive notion. People are dealing with some struggles and some difficulties, and they think, I can't wait for this problem to be done. I can't wait for this situation to be resolved. I can't wait for all these problems to be resolved so I can relax and really enjoy peace and contentment. You've heard this joke before, right? When will the day come when all your problems are utterly resolved? When will the day come when you have no more problems, no more difficulties, no more suffering? When will the day come when you can finally rest in peace? You've heard this before. But how many people naively wait for that day? They think it might be next week, or next month, or next year. Not death, but the resolution of all their problems and concerns. This naive notion persists in a great number of people. If we're mature, we should admit what this Brahmana has discovered, what this wise person has discovered, that no amount of effort in life will ever create a condition of perfect contentment. Therefore, nirvedam ayat, and this nirvedam ayat, one becomes dispassionate towards those worldly accomplishments. This is a radical transformation. And just to show how radical transformation it is, let's put this in some very solid Vedantic footing. As children, we think the source of happiness is where? Outside, right? When we really get it, we will understand the source of contentment and peace and happiness cannot possibly be outside. If the source of contentment, peace, and happiness is not outside, where is it? Well, you already know that. It's inside. What is the radical transformation I'm talking about? The verse says, nirvedam ayat. One becomes dispassionate. Means what? You finally get it. That the solution to my problem is suffering. The solution to the problem of suffering is not out there anywhere. The solution to the problem of suffering is in here. That's a radical transformation of orientation, where instead of being focused outside on worldly accomplishments, one becomes focused inside on spiritual growth. This is the transformation of a bhogi into a yogi. A bhogi is one who is fixated on worldly enjoyment. A yogi is one who's fixated on spiritual growth. A bhogi is focused outwards on worldly accomplishments. A yogi has his or her attention turned within for the sake of spiritual growth. That process is described here in the next verse. Where am I? Oh. We saw that. Oh, no. Oh, sorry. Do you think it would help if I flipped the page? Okay, sorry. Sarvatyage cha yatate, sarvatyage cha yat, drishtva lokam kshayatmakam, drishtva lokam kshay, tato mokshe prayatate, tato mokshe nanupaya rupayataha, nanupaya. So this verse describes that radical transformation. Sarvat, let's see, second line, drishtva, having recognized. Lokam kshayatmakam, having recognized that lokam, literally world, but refers to any worldly accomplishment. Drishtva, having recognized lokam, that any worldly accomplishment is kshayatmakam, temporary, limited, finite, and inadequate. As we said before, having recognized the limitations of worldly accomplishments, jump up to the top line, sarvatyage cha yatate. Then the person, yatate, is engaged in what? Sarvatyaga, renunciation of everything. These are big words. What are we describing is this radical transformation. Previously, you thought the solution to your problem of suffering was out there. Now, you were a bhogi. Now, with this recognition, you realize the solution to your problem is not out there, it is in here, inside of you. So therefore, what happens to your relationship to all that outside stuff? Sarvatyaga. The renunciation of everything. Now, tyaga means renunciation, and when you hear an expression like sarva tyaga, renunciation of everything, it leads many people to think about becoming a sannyasi, becoming a monk, renouncing the world. The renunciation we're talking about here is not a change of lifestyle, it's a change of attitude. A change of lifestyle is optional. If you want to go for it, by the way, I can help you arrange it. But I promise you it's optional. It's not necessary at all. What is not optional is this change of attitude. What is not optional is recognizing the limitations of what can be achieved through worldly accomplishments. Not optional. What's not optional is this radical change of orientation wherein instead of looking outside for the source of happiness, contentment, and peace, you start looking inside for the source of that happiness, contentment, and peace. This change of orientation is not optional. This change of orientation indeed is sarvatyaga. This is a renunciation that's required. The abandoning. It's not a physical abandoning. It's one of attitude, changing your orientation. So after recognizing the limitation of what you can achieve through worldly accomplishments, then turning your back in terms of attitude, not in terms of lifestyle, turning your back on worldly accomplishments, then what should you do? Tataha, then mokshe prayatate. Then you should strive for moksha. You should strive for liberation, freedom, for spiritual wisdom, recognizing the limitations of worldly accomplishments, shifting your attention from the external to the internal. What should you do? Mokshe prayatate. One strives for moksha, one strives for enlightenment. How? Suppose you're told in this class that the solution to all your problems is within you. A true statement. The solution to the problem of worldly suffering lies within you. Okay, close your eyes and find that solution. Doesn't work quite like that. It says, na anupayat. This is achieved, na anupayat. Do you remember a grammar teacher who told you never use a double negative? In scriptures, double negatives are used all the time. Na anupayat, not without help. Not without help is a double negative. Means what? With help. With a means, with a methodology. So, mokshe prayatate, one should strive for moksha, na anupayat, not without help, but rather upayataha, with the help of some means, with the help of some guidance. So you're not blindly looking within for the solution, but you take some help. What is that help? Can we go back to that beautiful verse in the Mundaka Upanishad? Because the second half of that verse tells you what that help is. It's the second half says, tat vijnanartam, for the sake of gaining that knowledge which is liberation. For the sake of gaining that knowledge, the verse said you should have an upaya. Upaya is a helpful means. That which helps you gain your goal is called upaya. Here, what is the upaya? Sa gurum eva abhigachet. What should you do? You should approach a guru. If you close your eyes and you're looking within for the solution, it's like you're in darkness. You need some guidance. Sagurum eva abhigachet. You should seek out the guidance of a guru. What kind of guru? Shrotriyam, a guru who is well studied in the scriptural tradition, and a guru who is brahmanishtam, established in wisdom, established in truth. That guru you should seek out. And what kind of attitude should you seek out? Samitpanihi. Could spend a lot of time talking about this. Summit were the sacrificial twigs that the student would bring to the student, to the teacher. So it means with the right attitude. That's all. That's a simple translation of that. The verse said that you na anupayat, you should seek moksha with a means. And what does that beautiful Upanishad verse say? It says, what is that means? That means is seeking a guru who is knowledgeable in the scriptural tradition and established in truth. With that guru's help, you will be led to discover. You'll be led to discover what? The fullness and completeness of who you already are. You already are that Satchidananda Atma, you already are non-separate from Ishvara, non-separate from Brahman. What is the problem? The problem is you may not know it. The truth of who you are is obscured by a veil of ignorance. That veil of ignorance must be removed. The Guru and Scriptures is essential to removing that veil of ignorance. Leading us to the last verse of our chapter. Indriyanam nirodhena, Indriyanam nirod, Satyena chadamena cha, Satyena chadame, Brahmana paramapnoti, Brahmana paramat, Yat param dvaja sattama, Yat param dvaja sattama. In the second line, that word dhammena, through dhamma, through self-control. Through self-control, what takes place? First line, indriyanam nirodhena. Nirodhena, through restraining, indriyanam, through the restraint of one's senses. Dhammena, through that self-control. What is the connection? We got done talking about how being outwardly focused, let me add an adjective, being exclusively outwardly focused will lead you just to continue to suffer and struggle. So therefore, we have to restrain that extrovert focus, and that's what this says. Through the nirodha, the restraint, indriyanam, of the senses looking out into the world, through the restraint of the senses, how is that taken place? Dhammena, through self-control, with will. So you use willful effort to turn your attention away from worldly accomplishments. You use your willful effort for the sake of focusing your attention within. Step one. That's the first half of that Mundaka verse. Then comes the second half. With the help of the Guru, and here the word comes in the second line, satyena. With the help of satya, truth, reality. We could even loosely translate that as by seeking reality. Dhammena, by self-control, you restrain your extrovert focus. The second step, satyena, by seeking truth. Brahmana padam apnoti. Apnoti, one gains. Padam, the goal, the abode. Very, very common expression. Brahmanaha padam. The abode of Brahman. Brahman here is not Brahmaji, the creator. Brahman here is absolute reality. Brahmanaha padam apnoti. One gains absolute reality. Tat yat param, which is supreme, which is absolute. One gains contentment, fulfillment, and a kind of contentment and fulfillment that is unending. What are the two steps? Dhammena, through self-control. Step one, your attention is redirected from being extrovert to looking within. Then step two, satyena, by seeking truth. With the help of the Guru, one gains moksha, one gains liberation. Dvija sattama, O great Brahmana, the butcher addresses a Brahmana, bringing this chapter to an end. The next chapter we'll see, starting next week, is right out of the Bhagavad. You'll feel like you're studying Bhagavad Gita. It's not Bhagavad Gita, but the topics are so close. You'll love it. It's a lovely topic on self-control, very similar to what we've seen in the Bhagavad Gita. We'll start that in our next class. All right. Some brief closing announcements. Tomorrow we have our satsang question-answer session at 6:15. If it's not too hot, we'll sit outside in the garden. If it is too hot, we'll sit in an air-conditioned room in the old hall. And this is an important announcement, I should say. 2 weeks from tomorrow, we have scheduled a I'll be teaching a residential camp, Vedanta camp, at Arsha Vidya Gurukulam, our parent ashram in the Poconos in Salisbury, Pennsylvania. I'll be teaching from Sunday through Friday, that's 2 weeks from tomorrow, and it'll be a wonderful time. Each morning we'll have a meditation session, guided meditation. There'll be 2 classes during the day on this wonderful text, Drishya Viveka, and we'll have satsang each evening. It's a lovely place, and to be in that residential environment and fully engaged in the teachings of Vedanta is something really, really rewarding. If you're able to join us, please come and join us. You can get information either from Arsha Vidya, from their website, or on our website you'll also get a link. So please come and join us for that camp 2 weeks from tomorrow. Also, we during our anniversary celebration, some of you, especially volunteers, were really busy with other activities, or some of you weren't able to join us here. We have some videos and maybe some pictures also on our website. If you missed out any part of the anniversary celebration, please go to our website. You can find some videos to watch. Library will be open after class, so we'll conclude with our prayers. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.